Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first Stories with Al, in which I tell stories of the past. Now, this first story is took place about about 20 years 20 odd years ago. Many of you know I'm 75, so I'm a good 52 in this story. Now, I'm sorry, I've got this beautiful. We had my mother was downstairs and she had a whole wine bowl, and she said, "Why don't you take the wine bowl upstairs?" And I said, "Mom, I don't want to take." And she said, "Take the wine bowl upstairs. I knew what you're doing up there." And I say, I'm not touching myself." But that's another story. So I took the whole wine bowl up. I mixed it with some Coca-Cola, and it was disgusting. So now I'm drinking orange juice. Anyhow, this story takes place about 25 years ago, and I'm going to be drinking my orange juice. So brief pauses will be enamored throughout the story. During these pauses, feel free to do something. That was one of them. So I had just moved to Panense, Minnesota, and it was a neighbor pact. And back in the 70s, when this happened, a neighbor pact was when you and your neighbor would move together. A lot of families were doing it because Minnesota was giving out the gold law, which was if you moved in one of these gold cavern areas, you could get a job as a miner. And my dad wanted to be a miner his whole life. He said, "One day I'm going to be a miner." And when they put out this gold law, he said, "I'm going to be a miner." And I said, "Dad, you can't be." And he slapped me across the face so hard my eyebrows flew off my head and they stuck on the wall. And I remember before we left, I drew a picture. I drew a whole face for me, where the eyebrows were. Obviously, I drew the eyes and stuff. And I drew a whole portrait of myself. And I said, here lies me face." And the next person that moved in, I don't know if they took it down, but it should still be there. So we moved to Minnesota, and my best friend was our next door neighbor. And so we get to Minnesota, and my best friend, his name's Dave. He's about over a foot taller than me. He's got bright red hair. He's a ginger. Me and Dave would always go on adventures. I've got tons of stories about Dave. He was a great, great boy. Not a man, because he died. But that's another story. Just a moment. Oh, God. That's horrible. So we get to Minnesota, and me and Dave, his father had also gone to work in the mines. My mother, she was working the clothesline. They would pay them, the city would pay them to close. What they would do is the entire city, the mayor and all the local public workers, they'd take their clothes, and the whole city had a clothesline that would run around the city, and all the mothers or the fathers that stayed at home, or any siblings that wanted to play with the paddling. It was called the paddle jacks, and they would take these huge paddles. Each house had one. It was like they had these little holsters in the back of the houses with these paddles, and called Paddle Jack Day. And everyone would put their laundry up, all wet and stuff, and you take these giant paddles and you put deodorant, you'd whack all the clothes. You'd whack these clothes, and so my mom whenever they had a paddle jack, they would whack the clothes with the giant paddles, and it'd get them super clean. And the sun would come out, and the ray shines would just blow them into dryness, and everything smelled wonderful. If you ever go to Panense, Minnesota, you say, "Can I take part in the paddle jack?" They've got guest ones, but also if you want, they have a paddle jack carving station where there's a man. His name's Ansi Jadams, and he's got this whole turtle mustache, and he will make you a paddle stack. And it's wonderful. The whole town's just a beautiful place, and I've never been to another place like that before I moved to the moon. It was beautiful. Oh, excuse me. So me and David, we had decided today we were gonna be miners. We were gonna be the men because say this is happening. Like I said, I'm 7 years old, and we go up to the mines. Now, mind you, the miners go into the mine bright and early, 10 a.m. in the morning. They go down there, they go in shifts, they have the big great elevator, it goes down, it takes them all. So no one's on the top, there's no one on top. There used to be an old man that would keep watch, But one time, there was I don't know, there's a narcotics bust, and he got murdered. It was a big story. Another story. So me and David, we go up to the mines. No one's there. The entire upper floor into the entrance of the cave is clear. There's nothing there. No one. Nobody. Hallelujah. So we're like, we're going to be men. And we grabbed some miner hats. They had them laying out in case, there were extras. And so we took the miner hats and we hit the button. We say, boing, boing, and the elevator comes up, and we're waiting there. And I'm getting a little nervous, I was the younger one. Dave was a little bit older than me. He had red hair, so he could see in the dark. That's true. You could ask a ginger. They can see in the dark. And anyhow, I'm getting a little nervous. I say, Dave, I'm a little nervous. I haven't been in the mines at all, and I'm afraid. And he says, don't. He looks at me. He looks down at me. He says, don't you get nervous now. We're gonna be men. And I'd never heard Dave talk like that. I said, Dave, are you sure? He said, yeah, we're about to be men. And I saddled up, I hiked my little belt up, and I fixed my hat, and I said, I'm gonna be a man. And so the elevator comes up, and the doors, these huge, great steel doors, open. And the rocks crumbling from the top of the cave as it's like scraping across the rocks. And I didn't tell Dave this, but I urinated myself. So it was a really cold winter. He was shivering, and I wasn't shivering. And he looked at me, and I don't know to this day if he knew, but I was warm because I pissed myself. Anyhow, we go in that elevator, and they've got designated levels. They go all the way down to like 150, and so we hit a random number because we didn't want to hit the one that anyone was working on, and usually they worked on the lowest level. So we hit 75. That felt like a good number. It was halfway, just about halfway in there. So we hit 75, and the elevator goes down. This is a creaky. Floorboards are just wood, the whole thing's made out of this sheer stainless steel stuff, but it's all rusted and just horrible, and it starts growing down. And me and Dave were waiting, and it finally gets 75. And I don't know if you've ever been that deep. Each level is a mile, so we're 75 miles under the ground. Mm, mm. Oh, oh God, we got pulp in it. Um, so we're 70. Oh, there's a bug over there. That's on. I'm sorry, it's on my clothes. Come into my fucking house. So yeah, we're 75 miles underground, and we step out into pure darkness. Now, the helmets we have on do have flashlights, but they can't see very far. This is before LEDs and fucking cell phones, so stop bitching about it. Anyhow, me and Dave, we walk out into this cave, and you can hear the gravel under our feet, and we're looking around, and it's quiet. I mean, pitch quiet. Like, when you're laying in your bed and you can kind of hear the whirring of the electricity in the walls, or maybe that whining in your ears where nothing is going on, but we hear absolutely nothing. We hear silence that we have never experienced before. There's no minor chisels, there's no rocks crumbling, there's nothing. And then so we're standing there, we start to walk, and suddenly we look behind us. The elevator doors have closed. It's going down. It is going down to get the other miners. This is how they get out, and they don't keep it at the top. They keep it on the bottom in case there's an emergency. So they're probably wondering who brought the elevator all the way up. They're thinking someone is coming down to play. They got late or something, and so this elevator goes down. At this point in the story, I shit myself. So I have already pissed myself, and now I just I unload my own gravel rock quarry inside of my pants, and Dave knows. Dave knows this, and I think he knows because he also seems to. I see. I saw a few little brown rocks next to him, and I was like, "No, I think that's poop." And he looks at me, and I look at him, and we both turn our heads like, "Oh, oh, you pooped, didn't you? You pooped." And so we're goofing off, we're smiling, we're pushing each other, and hear something scurry, and mind you, it's pitch black, silent now, and so we look in the direction, whoosh, and we're looking, and and we start to go. He says, "Come on, we gotta be men." And I'm like, "Okay, okay, let's go." So we start walking down into these caverns, and um, so we're walking for I'd say 5-10 minutes. It felt like an hour, and I hear more of this scurrying, these rocks moving and stuff. And I ask Dave. I say, "Dave, I hear something." Dave looks at me. He says, "There's nothing." And I say, "Are you sure?" He says, "Yeah." And so we keep walking, and this starts to get all around us, all around. Things are pushing rocks around. They're scurrying, and we're looking. We're turning around. We're starting to get dizzy. We don't really know where we are. We don't want to go too deep into the mines. We don't want to get lost. And suddenly it's this fury. It's constant circling us, encircling us. It's like we're at the center of a tornado, and we don't know what to do. We're looking around. We don't know what to do. We're screaming. I start screaming. Dave starts screaming. We start to cry. It's horrible. It's hard. It's terrifying, and we can't even hear ourselves cry. We grab each. And this is it's getting closer, getting closer, getting closer. And then I look, and it stops. And it stops. And a pair of eyes look at me in the darkness. And I say, Dave, look right there. And he looks at me. And we've got 2 light beams on this mother. And this creature starts coming. It's first 2 little paws. 2 paws and 2 little eyes. And he comes out. And it's a raccoon. It's a raccoon in the cave. And we've heard from stories of miners, raccoon caves. The raccoons are gonna get you. They got their little raccoon tails and raccoon faces, and they'll eat you alive. They'll eat your little baby bones, and they'll sell them. Nashtaradas. They will destroy you. They will kill you. And here they are, surrounding me and David, defenseless little boys. We have nothing. We have nothing. Those horrible orange cheeks. I look at Dave. He looks at me. And these creatures start coming towards us. These little raccoons look beautiful. And you think that... I think you'd have them as a pet. But no. No. He opens his mouth, this baby raccoon. He has the sharpest teeth. He's got a cutlery. A QVC cutlery inside of his mouth. The sharpest. I can see him cutting rocks, saying, "Order my teeth. These will go for a bargain, $19.99. Free shipping. Get a pack of 2. He comes right towards us. And I can see him to this day, his little beady eyes and his cutlery teeth looking at me. And I hear the elevator. The doors. The elevator is back. And I look, and there's my father. And 100 other miners come running out. Fucking miner claws. They start ripping these raccoons in half. "You're not gonna eat my son today." Some of these miners have got swords. Some have got pickaxes. Some of them got metal claws. They're ripping these raccoons in half. I'm hearing the death cries of these raccoons getting shredded to pieces, and one of them, one of the raccoons grabbed me by the shoulder. His sharp talons going inside me. "Davey!" I scream, and Dave looks at me, and he pierces, and he looks at my father. My father throws Davey a pickaxe. Dave grabs that pickaxe, lifts it up, and he nudges it down like the fury of 1,000 gods. And this pickaxe, it blows through this raccoon's skull like a hot butter knife blowing through some hot tamale bacon. I swear to God, this raccoon's head exploded into about 1,000 shards, painted the ceiling into the fury death of his face. It looked like someone had painted this raccoon's face in blood. It was, imagine it. But we gotta go. We're running towards the elevator. Come on, you gotta go. I still got this raccoon, with this headless raccoon still shoved in. He's trapped. His arm is through my shoulder, so I'm carrying this headless raccoon. I'm limping. I take his arm, and I break it, and I can hear the crack. It's like celery snapping. And I slice it off. I have this little baby knife I still have today, and I throw this. I'm about to throw this baby raccoon body towards this fury of army of raccoons that have emerged now that they've heard their brethren being slaughtered, and I'm about to throw it and I hear I feel a hand on my arm, and I look behind. It's my father. He says, "Before you do that, take this." And he takes out a pouch. They used to have pouches of dynamite that they used to blow out the gold. And he shoves this through the neck cavity of the raccoon. And you can hear the guts squishing in there. And he says, "Let her blow." And he takes out this lighter. And it's in the shape of a dragon. And he clicks the back part. Flames come out the back. Starts lighting the fuse. And I chuck this little dead raccoon corpse. And it's got this fuse. And it lands in front of the front line of the raccoons running towards the square in us, so you can hear the rocks rumbling. And it stops. And they look at it. And you can hear the fuse, and then someone hits the elevator. First floor selected. It was, I don't know why it was British, but when it was starting to go up, the elevator starts going up, and I remember I looked, and I saw a raccoon looking at it. He's looking at the TNT. He looks at me, and that's the last thing I saw. Shh. You hear the fuse stop. Entire elevator shook for a near minute. I was shaking for 10 minutes. We got to that first floor. My father walked me and David out. He said, Don't you boys ever come inside of this mine till you're men." And me and David, we looked at each other. My father and the rest of the mining crew, they hit ping, level 175 selected. They're going down. And I look at my shoulder. It's bleeding. And I still got the raccoon claw. Still got the raccoon hand shoved through my shoulder. And I take it out. And I look at it. And I look at Dave. And we started cracking up. And I've got this raccoon hand to this day, charried up on my wall. I got it nailed right in there. And every night before I go to sleep, I slap it. And it goes back and forth and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's the day. That's the day I learned you don't ever go into the wild, and, you just don't. Because, unless you're prepared, of course. Me and Dave, we were not prepared. Because the raccoon, they got their little beady eyes, and they got a mask on their face, and they got little claw gloves. And they will eat you. They will destroy you. Unless you got a pack of TNT. Let me tell you, buddy. Things ain't gonna end nice. That's my first story. Good night.